This is for you.
Yes, sir. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco. It is Philly the podcast. You know, I got my boy Brandon with me here as always. But today we have a great guest today. It's a very special guest, Gate City Sports, Steven Hyder. How's it going, my man?
Good, guys. Good. How about y'all?
I'm living the dream, man. I can't complain. You know, I cannot complain. It's good to have you on here. So, like we were talking off camera a little bit, you know, you've been really breaking down these coaches lately, and I feel like we're very close to the finish line. You know, it looks like we got a couple people that are in our sights. Josh McDaniels, namely, probably the biggest name right now. So let's all just I just want to hear everybody's thoughts on the search so far, you know, it taking so long. Are you happy, mad that it has been taking so long? Just your overall thoughts so far. Brandon, you want to start, and then we'll go on down to Steve.
Yeah. I just feel like it's I don't want to say it's getting prolonged. I just feel like, I guess because of all the other teams minus the Texans finding their head coach, it just feels like, dang, what are we doing? Why is it taking forever for the Eagles to find that one guy that they're looking for? But then I also had to reel it back and be like, all right, we just fired our coach like a week ago. So it's just like the process is a little longer than just plug and play and hopefully picking a guy that's good. And they're doing their due diligence. It is a lot of names being out there. But I mean, it's kind of good that they're looking around and not just saying, oh, we're kind of sticking with this one guy that we always wanted. Let's kind of get our feet wet and talk to all these different voices. Maybe they're filling in a gap while they're waiting to interview Eric Bieniemy. Maybe they're like, why not talk to other people too? I don't know. But I mean, that kind of sounds logical in my sense, unless tomorrow comes and they just name Josh McDaniels or something. But this has been interesting, it's for sure. It keeps us busy and it keeps our imaginations rolling as to what our team's going to look like.
For me personally, guys, it's my concern is not so much with the head coach, just because I feel like head coaching sometimes gets a little overstated, and it's really the people he surrounds himself with that really matter. So my issue with the way the search has gone is we seemed unprepared. It looks like we really didn't anticipate this going down the way it did with Doug. I mean, that does seem to be apparent. And my concern is how long do we wait? How hard is it going to be for this whoever we bring in to get assistance around them? I think that could be an issue. And the longer the search goes on, the more likely a team is going to tell you, like, if you're not promoting a guy, they might tell you no. They might just flat out, no, like, you can't do that. Then you got to consider pulling up from college. I mean, you got National Signing Day coming up, right? You got guys that may have been recruited by a position coach. And then if you lift that position coach to bring them to your staff, like, you could create bad feelings down on that lower level there in college as well. Like, those are the things that kind of concern me about, like, the distance and the time. And then I think someone, I can't remember who it was, but someone reported out today that Lurie said something along the lines of, like, if it took till February, he would be okay. I'm like, I'm glad he's okay with that. But other coaches around the league might not feel the same way.
Some of the stuff that Howie Roseman says, I swear to God, the wrong person wrote a book after that Super Bowl, because I would just, to this day, I feel like we would be using just random quotes from a Howie Roseman book, because he's regretted every single press conference quote he's given this year. It's just, this is crazy. But we heard two new names today. We heard Dennis Allen, and we heard, God forgive me, I'm never going to say his name right, the Colts offensive coordinator. That's where we're going to go with it. So we heard two new names, and we got a little bit deeper on what Deuce might provide. Obviously, a lot of people are, kind of zoned in on Josh McDaniels for good reason, but we heard that Deuce Staley might have already kind of gotten a good staff together. So to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, Gay City Sports, Steve, we need to get our head coach right now. Like you said, to wait till February could be disastrous, and I've been on that train that we need to get back to where everybody has a sense of accountability. Everybody has a job, because I feel this whole, we saw it with Chip Kelly trying to give him everything, the keys to the mansion. It did not work. I feel with Doug Peterson, he needed the keys to the mansion, and it was a hesitation on both ends. I feel like he didn't want to come out and say what he really wanted, but on the other end, we really probably wouldn't have given him what he wanted. So it was a weird situation. But to your point, we have to have very good coordinators. So my question is, we've interviewed the special teams coordinator for Dallas. We've looked at a couple of head coach possibilities that might be better suited for defensive coordinators. Do you guys think there's any possibility that they're kind of smokescreen in some of these interviews, and some of these people might be more positional than head coaching?
Yeah, you can go ahead and say that. I mean, we're interviewing so many people, and just like you said, Dallas special teams coach, like, why would that even be someone that we would look at? That's kind of, it confuses me. But like you said, it could be, but even for positional, I mean, special teams, we already have a special teams coach that's actually pretty good. And I mean, unless he's planning to leave or something, we're trying to, I don't know. I see what you're talking about, especially with a guy like Gerard Mayo or something, how that kind of was brought up with McDaniels. But there's just so many different names coming around that, yeah, you can say smokescreen. You can say they're at least giving people opportunities to get the interview process in. But now listening to what you guys are saying, that waiting too long and the implications of everything kind of changed my mindset about this. Like, I didn't think about college signing day. I wasn't thinking about, once you get your head coach, then the assistants don't automatically just stick to them. Like, there's different implications on waiting. And so now I'm starting to think more, and I'm just like, now I'm more worried than I was before I came on here.
I'll say this. In terms of like where some of these guys are internally with why they might consider X, Y, or Z guy, I think it goes, in depth a lot of ways. Some people might be serious candidates. Other people, they might just be asking them specific questions as quarterback gurus about what they see on film from both of their quarterbacks, from Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. I think people forget that Jalen Hurts has to be evaluated too. And the guy that was probably leading the evaluation just walked out the door. So, they're kind of up against the wall on both quarterbacks now. I think that could be, just bringing guys in for a cup of coffee to talk to them about what they're seeing. On top of that, positional coaches, absolutely. Coordinators, I don't think Mayo was a serious head coaching candidate. I think that was definitely coordinator related to me. That's what that felt like to me. But I do think guys like Dennis Allen, I think those guys are serious candidates for the head coaching position. It just depends on where they are, who the guy is that they're bringing in. I have no clue why we're bringing in Dallas as special team coordinator. I don't get that one. I don't understand that one myself. But
I think the Eagles are trolling us at this point. To be honest, the Eagles are having fun with this at this point, because it just doesn't make sense. And I mean, we've talked about it. I'm sure you've talked about it on your channel as well with the whole Carson Wentz and Jalen situation. We had Zach Berman on here this morning, and he said basically that he doesn't think that they would count out a coach or disregard or just say that a coach would not get the job just because of Jalen versus Carson. But I want to get your opinion more so about, what do you think? If you're going in there as a coach, are you gonna be working with Carson? Are you looking at the team more so and saying we might be better off without that contract and Carson? What do you think these guys are coming in and thinking?
I mean, personally, if I was the coach and I was a coaching candidate, and I was being brought in to talk, I would definitely want Howie present in that meeting, and I would want members of the scouting department there. Here's my thing. If I'm looking at, you're telling me as a coach, I have a cap strat, situation. I got almost a complete rebuild going on the defensive side of the ball. That's a lot of problems over there right now. We got some older guys that are the better players that we have to figure out in the next year or two. That's a much larger and looming situation going on. I mean, I would want to know, Howie, what is the evaluation around the league about this guy? What exactly are the little nuanced things about this contract? What can you tell me about this contract, right? Because we know in March, part of 2022 becomes guaranteed. So, like, you're almost kind of getting backed into the wall here. So, like, this guy at least being here for a year, if not 2 years. I will say that if you technically, if you went out there and you competed with these two, and I'm not saying that Carson would lose the job. I mean, I'm not making any judgments on that until I see these dudes on the field. I mean, to be honest. But if Carson did theoretically lose out to the quarterback competition, and mind you, Carson, it's not just lose, he's got to lose badly. Let's be real. I mean, it's going to have to be like a clear difference between these two.
Definitely.
But if that were to happen, I think the one thing you're going to face is like what value, because guys are going to know this around the league. So what's the value you're really going to have? But number two, could you get Carson to come down and talk to you and say, look, Carson, obviously, you're going to lose this job. You don't want to be a backup. We don't want you to be a backup. You're going to have to work with us, man, because if we're going to get you to where you need to be, this contract's got to get redone. Like, nobody's taking this on. The way that they did some things to work around Malik Jackson's contract, to work around Alshon Jeffrey's contract, I think they could do some financial cap wizardry around Carson Wentz too. And plus, once you're past June 1st, you don't have to worry about designating the guy. It's automatically done once you're past June 1st. I mean, I would want to know those things. If I was a candidate coming in, like, I need to know these things. Like, how mad would you guys be if at the 6th pick, I want to go up a pick or two, and I want to go get me a quarterback?
Now, before you go too far from that, I want to ask you, because I know you know more about this than probably anybody on this chat or even in this room right now. What is that? Because me and Brandon go back and forth on this. I know, or at least I was thought that there was like a 3-day window for Carson Wentz that we would not eliminate the cap loss, but there would be a minimal cap loss if we were to trade him within that 3-day window. Am I losing my mind, or is that a real thing?
That may be true. I'd have to look at the actual specifics of the contract in itself. I know the third league calendar day starts to guarantee that 15 million of 2022. I do know that the looming issue is the $10 million. He's got a $10 million bonus coming due. So okay. That's the problem is that actually the dead money in the cap hit's going to be worse if you don't get this done. Like, once that 10 million kicks in, like, they got you. He's got you for that 10 million unless you come to the table and negotiate. And that's the thing is, like, if I'm a coach, like, personally, do I think that would I grade these guys at what I had Carson graded in 2016? Like, I would have to legitimately sit down with the film with these guys and look and be honest as a coach. Like, with my scouting department, like, Howie, I need you in my office. I need a scouting department in my office. Like, we need an evaluation here because we need to make sure we get this correct. Because let me tell you, just imagine how bad this can go. Uh-huh. Imagine you keep Hurts as your backup. You trade out Wentz. You go draft a kid, right? Imagine the kid you draft isn't who you thought he was. Wentz goes to another opportunity, another situation, starts playing good, and Hurts starts looking like the better quarterback. Like, that's how bad this nightmare scenario can get. Like, you have to. And we can feel it with a lot of,
and we can feel it with a lot of different people, not just Carson Wentz. We can feel it with our coaching staff, because our coaching staff looks like it's getting torn apart right now. I mean,
right?
If we are interviewing the Dallas' special teams coordinator for a special team spot, Dave Phipp has been on this team for a long time. That's going to be a face that's definitely missed. His special teams hasn't been what it was in the past. I will admit that, but he's still a solid face. Steve Stoutland, Jeff Stoutland, same thing. If he's gone, good luck to whoever's trying to really replace that, because right. I mean he's been probably the most solid coach on our staff up until now. So it's looking like it's a complete rebuild from the ground up. What are you thinking, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, if you have to figure, if you're a coach, you're coming into this knowing that Carson Wentz is like, that's a situation. If us fans know, the media knows, everyone knows about his contract and everything like that, you have to at least go in with the mindset like, all right, I'm interviewing for this job. What can I do for Carson? What can I do to really fix the situation? Because I personally, I don't really see Carson off of this team. And once he's here, if he plays bad, we're not going to get anything for him. Like, if we don't think we're going to get something now that's worth Carson Wentz, imagine if he plays bad after he wins the starting job next year. Like, Joe even brought this up a couple of weeks ago or a couple of lives ago was, listen, if we can get like a 4th for him now, we would get like maybe a 7th next year if he stinks it up, or maybe nothing. Like, it's such a gamble. And I know that every decision that's made in the NFL or any sport, it's always a gamble with players, but this one just feels big, because as soon as you keep both quarterbacks, because trading Hurts is not off the table either. That could be something too if you can get the right compensation for it. So I personally, once again, I don't think you can really live with both quarterbacks on this team. As soon as the starter, whoever it is playing any kind of bad football, everyone's going to be wanting the backup, because now we have 2 starters again. And I don't know how NFL teams can work like that. This is definitely tricky for whatever coach.
There's a funny, like, my wife is a huge Game of Thrones fan, and she knows that they're rebooting that, like, before the other show kicked off, they're getting that kind of that prequel. And we started watching Game of Thrones again, and I kind of quasi watched it the first time. I am, like, I did study history when I was in college, and I was a social studies teacher for a while, but, like, I'm not really into the fantasy Dragon World stuff. But I was like, okay, like, I can get into the sword fights and stuff. That's okay. So I'm like watching the king dude, the Baratheon guy, and he has this saying, and he asked the queen, and he's like, which is the bigger number, 5 or 1? And of course she answers 5, and he's like, no, 1 united army behind 1 leader, 1 united team behind 1 quarterback, behind 1 voice in the coaching staff. Like,
right.
That's like that's the problem you have when you have 2, you have 0. That's the thing. Like,
yeah, they've said that, about quarterbacks. When you have 2 quarterbacks, you got none. We have to have a sense of accountability, because, and I've preached this, since I've started this podcast, to be honest, because when you have all those puzzle pieces, all those chefs in the kitchen, like, I used to be a chef. I've cooked for plenty of people, and I've cooked in a lot of kitchens. It's nice to have teamwork, but at the end of the day, it's hard to place blame when there's 15 hands in the pot. So, when we don't have a designated chef, hate to keep talking food because now I'm hungry, but when you don't have a designated chef, it's hard to really figure out what the problem is. Obviously, Doug Peterson kind of, some will say scapegoated, some will say that it was, warranted. It is what it is. We're going to find out now. But Howie Roseman, to kind of switch gears, Howie Roseman, you guys are talking about Jalen, having to either trade Jalen or Carson. He might come out of this looking like the smart guy. And I say that because if we do trade Jalen, he got value out of his 2nd-round picks. Let's say we get a late first, or even if we get an early 2nd, Howie looks smart. And if we do keep Jalen and he does play well and he is, our future or whatever that may be, Howie looks smart. So reason why I say this is, how stuck are we with Howie? Because I think his contract comes up next year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be, but either way,
I've heard something along those lines.
So how stuck do you guys think we are with him?
I mean, I kind of floated this idea out there, and I think it was recent. We were talking Philly Fresh, myself, and I said Howie Roseman might be the only person in the world who ever created a problem so big he was the only person who can solve it, and in the process of doing that, kept his job a year longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, to be honest about it.
Right.
Because, I mean, look, I can defend him on a lot of the things that happened. Like, anyone saying that they wouldn't have signed Carson Wentz to the contract they signed him to, like, I don't buy it. Like, they would have signed him. Like, doesn't matter who the GM was, they were going to make that contract. So I'm not going to put that on. But then when you look at Alshon's contract, I can't really defend that. I would like to defend it. I can't. There's just nowhere to defend that with. Like, when you look at some of the other there's a few of them, like what's his name, the kicker, Elliott.
Yeah,
like,
oh my God.
Like, good. I mean, that's a horrible contract. He's the 9th highest paid kicker in the league.
And we paid people for what they did.
Yeah, he makes more than their entire linebacking core. Like, it's crazy.
It can't make a kick. I'm sure, Camus Grugier-Hill made more field goals than him, I feel like. You remember when Camus had to be our kicker for that little stint game? Against Dallas, actually, I think it was. But either way, yeah, I mean, That's a really good point because I didn't think of it like that. He really did just basically create his own job because there's nobody else that's going to want to get out of this hole.
Right. And I understand some of it's not his fault. Like he couldn't have predicted a worldwide pandemic, like increase in league revenue, and that the Players Association and then the owners would get together and then tie league revenue, to the salary cap. I'm pretty sure he didn't, he wasn't masterminding all that. But I mean, and when you look at the kicking the money down the road and what it did, like, hey, he saw a window, he made really bad personnel decisions with that window, and now everything's coming due. And it's like, then Howie steps up and goes, I know a guy that can fix this. Howie Roseman. That's what he did to him.
Yeah, he gave him his own business card. Like, call this guy. He got you. Yeah, hook you up.
This guy's a clock wizard.
he's a wizard with that calculator. Oh God. I mean, hopefully we did hear also in a tweet, I can't remember the exact person who tweeted it, but he said that, Howie was open to the idea of giving up a little bit of control to Josh McDaniels, because in the same tweet they were talking about how Jeffrey Lurie basically is the last one that needs to be sold on Josh McDaniels. So what do you think that can do for us as a team if he is to step back a little bit? Now we don't know necessarily what that means. That could just mean he's not going to tell him what he wants him to do on a Sunday. He just tells him Friday and leaves him for the weekend. But, hopefully to me, that's saying, drafting personnel decisions and stuff like that. So is that something that kind of, is enticing you to make even Josh McDaniels more of a guy? Or does that open up our coaching search a little bit, that news coming out that he's open to giving up power?
I don't know how many other coaches legitimately would seek that kind of power. Josh McDaniels, certainly. The enemy would want that kind of control. I don't think even Brian Dable, I don't think he wanted that kind of control. I mean, sure, he wants control over who's active, but I don't think he wants to be up there trying to be the person in charge of making selections and judging talent, per se. I'm just trying to think of like the candidates that are available who would have really wanted that type of control. And I think really Josh McDaniels is the only one that's really ever kind of leaned in that direction. You know what I mean? Like, has ever really done that before, and it wasn't really successful. Like,
at all.
I mean, the evaluation he put on Tebow, like, it's like, man, like, hey, Josh, man, you got some good stuff. I'll give you that, bro. Like, there are some things I got to give you credit for, but hey, man, that valuation of Tim Tebow, like,
Cutler was trash too. Cutler was trash too. I'll give him that. Cutler was not a good quarterback after he left Denver, especially. I mean, like, so I'll give him that. I 100% agree with you that if I never see another Tebow pose on the field, it will be too soon. But
I'll pose to you another question. If we're going to cede partial control, now I'll give you the other ones that might want that would be college coaches. Yep. So Lincoln Riley would be the other one I'd watch. But what do you do with John Dorsey? You have John Dorsey here. That's what he does. He evaluates talent. That's what he's best at. You don't want him trying to manage, the contracts. That's where he goes way off the rails. But John Dorsey at evaluating talent was very good. What got John Dorsey in trouble was everything else that surrounded the GM job. Like, he took a lot of like risk with guys that had, those red flags for behavior issues and prior things in their records, and but I'll be honest with you, man, he found some really good football players. Like, everyone wants to cry about the conduct off the field until you're winning.
Facts. Go ahead, Brandon. I'll let you go. I've been talking a
lot. I mean, do I need Howie out the door? Obviously, that's kind of like what we want. But like you've been saying, we need someone to fix this cap, and only Howie can do it. And if he does it, then that's great. Then he becomes that, oh, man, Howie's the genius with the cap and all that. But I just feel like if Howie steps back, I don't need the head coach to be the main evaluator, the main guy picking the players. That's what you have all those scouts for. And like you said, that's why you bring in a guy like Dorsey to help you with that. Like, Howie doesn't have – he's hit on some picks, especially in the later rounds. I feel like we have had some like help in those, but it's just like those main first couple picks where we need someone to be like, no, take the obvious, take the Jefferson, LSU over TCU. I mean, like, look at the competition levels at the two different schools. Like, take the obvious choice. And we've been preaching that since toward the end of the season, when we knew the season was over, about taking the obvious choice. Just going out there, taking the DK Metcalf over JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I can go down a list of different players. I mean, there was a couple players that we could have taken instead of Andre Dillard. I mean, granted, getting a new left tackle was probably the way to go, especially JP getting old. But hindsight, there's other players that could have been taken considering what's happened to Dillard throughout the first couple of years in his season. So just having other voices there.
I found some interesting things on that topic.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the players you named, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Andre Dillard. Do you know what agency represents them? Rep 1. Do you know who else who else is represented by Rep 1? Carson Wentz.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Someone clip that. I need that clip.
It's speculation, guys. It's really speculative. Like, Rep 1's a big agency. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they got a lot of clients. Like,
but
I will say this. For over a 3-year period from 16, 17, 18, 19, so 4-year period, they had Wentz, Isaac Seumalo, Matt Collins, Dallas Goedert, Andre Dillard, and JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
Damn.
Now, I will say that I know for a fact Carson Wentz beat his chest and won it Dallas Goedert. That was a good call by him, by the way. He definitely threw passes to Matt Collins, and I think that was just a situation to where the coaching staff was familiar with, hey, look, Carson kind of likes this guy, and then on top of that, let's be real, Howie Roseman has connections with these agents.
Right.
He's probably, they probably take advice from these agents. And I think that's why you get a guy like, honestly, like a JJ. You get a guy like a Matt Collins because of the value of where they are. Now, I'm not going to go defend the DK Metcalf thing. and in case you guys are wondering, no, Rager was not a part. Rager was not Rep 1.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. He's coming for him. Especially after he sees you say that. He's like, oh, okay, that's who I need. Now, I want to bring this up because this is so Philly Insider Podcast. Shout out to you. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. We're at like 33 people. Shout out to y'all. Make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. If you are not subscribed to Gate City Sports, I don't know what you're doing, but check in the description. I definitely have a link to his channel, so definitely go check him out. If you're a cerebral sports fan, he's the guy you need to see. But Philly Insider Podcast says one of Josh's Denver players did an interview and said he's never been more prepared, but that he couldn't run through a brick wall for him. Also, he said, yeah, and then so boom. Also said he'll be better on the second stint. Reason why I bring that up is because I did my, who I would want to be in my staff. And I did say I want McDaniels as the head coach, but I want someone like Deuce to be our offensive coordinator. Reason being, I think that the balance – I think that, Deuce is that kind of guy that maybe he won't get you X's and O's prepared as far as like routes to run or, so little stuff like that, offensive minded people are very, very good at. But I feel like Josh can do that. Josh can handle that. And then he can just kind of have Deuce as that, I don't want to say puppet, but as the front man, as the guy that goes out there and says, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And you buy a little bit of respect on that. So, I kind of want to know what you guys think. I did the video on my own. So, Brandon, I kind of want to know what you think, too. So, let me know what you guys think about that.
I don't know about that. I think, especially with candidates for a head coach, they have a certain ego. Especially in McDaniels, he doesn't look like the type of guy that would want someone else kind of being the face, taking the shine in a sense. Because if you're running through a brick wall for someone, that means like you're attentive. You respect the hell out of that person. And if Deuce is up here talking and everyone's listening, but then when it's your turn to talk and everyone's kind of like maybe looking down at their phone or doing something and not really like, you don't see that drive for them, there's some jealousy that can come from that. And I don't know if that's a dynamic, especially I feel like our team's pretty fragile at this point, that we need. If players can't run through a brick wall for the guy, I feel like we're going to go even further down than what we're going to be where along the lines of rebuilding and all that. If we're going to be rebuilding for the next couple of years, then I want a guy like Deuce, a guy that players would run through a brick wall for, players that respect him. And you're going to have to get all these young guys to buy into the system and everything like that. Because if we're rebuilding, that means we're trying to hit in the draft and trying to keep the team young. And so you need to get the respect. You need to get someone that really relates to the players in a sense, like kind of gets what their culture is like and kind of can bring everyone together. I don't know. Hearing that players wouldn't want to run through the wall for him and he was just kind of just like the prepared nerd of a coach, I don't know if that's going to work out.
I need to know what's up with Rep 1 because they have the worst talent. And they're like Sudfeld and Trubisky. Wow. But go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
So their quarterback class, guys. So Rep 1 is probably better situated in the quarterbacks. They have Big Ben. This is not a big knock for. They had Blake Bortles, Carson Wentz. They had who else? They had a few other people. I think they had Marcus Mariota is with them. Trubisky, of course. Sudfeld came after Carson pumped him up. I'm missing. There's another big one. They have another big quarterback that was a semi-known one.
That's a lot of money for the agency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what. In terms of the coaches, look, I hate to say it, but Josh McDaniels is one of the better candidates we've interviewed. Is he my personal favorite? No, not at all. All things considered, where was I at? I mean, if this job was was more attractive to potential candidates and we had gotten, this done early and just decided we were going to move on from Doug and we're prepared to go into search. I was huge on Arthur Smith, man. I liked Arthur Smith a lot. And I know that he's not a perfect merit in Philadelphia because Arthur Smith very much believes in, I don't care about spreading the ball around. I care about getting the ball to the guys that can make plays. And I'll scheme it to get them the plays. I'll build the offense around those guys. He would have to adjust that a little bit in Philly because you're not going to give Miles Sanders 25, 30 touches a game. Like, it's not going to happen. You could, but he's going to have a short career probably.
Yeah.
He would have to adjust, things like that. There's no doubt about it. But I trust the guy, man. He's a hard worker. He came up the right way. Like, something about him just makes me think he's going to be successful as a head coach. Now it's going to depend about the staff he puts around him because one dude can't do it. You've got to have a good staff. Brian Daboll, I was really high on Brian Daboll. I love Brian Dable's system. I really do. I love that. I know he's getting credit to some people, not everybody, but some people are giving Brian Daboll the credit for what's going on there with the quarterback situation. And it's probably a little unfair, but he at least got the attention. You know what I'm saying? Got him into the right people to hey, man, call around the league. Talk to Tony Romo. Talk to these other quarterbacks, these retired quarterbacks that can help you. Who can help you assess your game. And then he got him into the direction of getting in there with a quarterback coach over, the spring and over the summer to work with him. Like, Brian Daboll was really high on my list. I won't lie. Those guys, I knew it was probably going to be a stretch for them to come to Philly. I liked Eric Bieniemy a lot because I think Eric Bieniemy has the adequate experience. I already endorsed Deuce. I think Deuce is given the circumstance, like, I'm not saying Deuce is that experienced as a head coach, like, as a head coaching candidate, I should say. But given the circumstance of the valuation we've received from people around the league about this job and the fact that the guys trust Deuce, the only problem I have with Deuce is some people say he wouldn't be agreeable to the front office, but he's a loyal guy, man. He's been here for a long time. I don't know about that. I honestly don't know about that.
That's what me and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go say what you're gonna say.
No, that's what me and Brain have been going back and forth about too. Is that a lot of people think he's gonna come in and just kind of be like that stern, like, no, this is how we're gonna run it. But that man has been here for like 10 years. Like, he is not gonna go in there and be like, no, everything's changing now. Like, I feel like a lot of fans like have that set in their mind, and it's just not how things work. When when you're with somebody for so long, you like you said, he's loyal. You know what I'm saying? He obviously likes what's going. I'm not saying he likes what's going on there, but he's comfortable in what's going on there. He's been in that situation for so long. I see a lot of the same. So that's kind of why I want someone like Josh McDaniels. That's kind of like the opposite. They both have that sternness to them and they both have that attitude about them. But I feel like Josh McDaniels is a very like one-way type of guy. He's like that boom, and he's not very like player orientated. You know what I'm saying? I think he could talk to a playbook better than he could talk to a player. Yeah. So like, you know, like with Deuce Staley, I feel like he's more of a talk to the player guy. And it's not necessarily, maybe, you know, saying he's the face of the organization is a bad way of putting it, but he's more of that, you know, personable guy. Everybody has that friend that's a genius that just can't really get out what they're trying to say. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people say I'm that guy, but no, you know, so everybody has that guy. So I feel like the differences mesh very well with those two. You know what I'm saying? If I'm saying who I wanted, my top three were Bieniemy, Saleh, and I think Deuce I put third. I think I said I would take Deuce. Yeah. Could be wrong about that, but either way, so, you know, Bieniemy, I just don't think we're going to wait at this point. I just don't see us waiting for him anymore, especially with all these people that we've interviewed. You know, it would kind of be kind of a slap in the face to a lot of people, especially to go back if Bieniemy doesn't want the job. I think we're at a point we can't really have that pie on our face. You know?
Hey, if Cleveland won that game on Sunday, how different could this coaching search look this week?
Right.
It would have been nuts. It would have been nuts. I mean, the stories would have been great. We wouldn't have had what's his name on this morning because
he would have
Zach Berman definitely would have been here.
But to your guys' personal opinion, would you guys prefer to have an offensive-minded head coach, defensive-minded head coach, or would you be comfortable with someone that hasn't really called plays and would be more of like that CEO type of head coach?
I would have taken a gamble on Saleh. I'm not preferential to a defensive-minded head coach just because I think it completely leaves you, it leaves you vulnerable to having your coordinators, your offensive coordinator and your quarterback coach repeatedly taken from you. And I think it's harder to keep adapting to that. I just think that there's less defensive, coaches out there, to be honest with you, head coaches. So they do well. I mean, McDermott's doing pretty well in Buffalo right now, but Saleh I probably would have taken a chance on because I think he's that good. I'll give you another guy that could probably be an executive coach, and Jalen, I'm absolutely stealing from you, bro. I saw your comment. I'm stealing it. David Shaw. David Shaw. Bring David Shaw from Stanford here, make him your head coach, and then take, in a perfect world to where, there's not a whole bunch of negotiations and this guy picking his own staff where Gate gets to pick his staff. Put Deuce as the OC. He's already worked with Pep Hamilton. Bring Pep Hamilton in as your quarterback coach. I mean, I like that recommendation of David Shaw, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people like Lincoln Riley a lot. I don't dislike Lincoln Riley. I don't. I think he's a very creative guy, and I think he's good. But look, I watched him at ECU with Ruffin McNeil. I saw what he did at ECU, many years ago, and I mean that was like lightning in a bottle with Ruffin McNeil and him together there. The only problem I have is I don't know that the air raid translates that well to the NFL. We're kind of feeling out right now in Arizona with it, and certainly teams have implemented portions of the air raid into their offense. But wholesaling it into your offense, I don't know. I don't know if that would go as well as people think. I mean, I think he's talented. I definitely think he's talented, but I think he's really creative. I don't know that he would work in the NFL, though. I have hesitation calling for college coaches to come up to the NFL, to be quite honest. I mean, I'll give you an outsider that was just named today. I didn't know that much about him, and then I looked up who he was and what he believes in. I'm going to try to pronounce his name too, guys, so we can all laugh. Right. I think it's Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, okay, yeah, the Colts offensive.
Yeah, I think that's how you say it. So Nick Sirianni, what I loved about him was when I was watching his interviews, this is a matchup guy. He doesn't give a crap about what style of offense you want to call his offense. What he cares about is getting his playmakers in favorable matchups so that way they can win. So he'll play to matchups with his tight ends and his running backs. I mean, he's only 29. He hasn't even been an offensive coordinator that long. I don't know if he's qualified to be a head coach, but I got to be honest, man. I do like him. I like what I've heard from him in the interviews. I like a little bit what I've seen from the film so far. I do plan on digging a little deeper and doing a video within the next day or two about him. But he's one that definitely caught my attention. Offensive line coaches, guys. There's some interesting names floating out there right now that I think could be really interesting depending on what happens to us. Like, we have to figure out what's going to happen in Philadelphia because we don't even know who will or won't be available for us. Like, we don't know who's coming back. We don't know who's moving on. Like, who the heck knows who's going to be anywhere at this point in time. But I will give you one person that makes a lot of sense because Carson Wentz is here and he's good at developing talent. If we end up losing Stoutland, I think is it Polasek, Tim Polasek, the offensive line coach at Iowa. The reason I say that is before he was the offensive line coach at Iowa, he coached the offensive line at North Dakota State, and he was the offensive coordinator there.
Yeah, he has some dogs in Iowa. Iowa got some dogs.
Yeah.
I'm a Penn State fan, so I know all too well about Iowa, unfortunately.
Like he would be an interesting name to me to see, like, what he could do. Like, bring him up here. Like, I would rather have Stoutland personally, but
me personally, like, if I'm being honest, I feel like if we're going the college route is good if you're willing to give it time. And I don't feel like, as much as they want to say that, this is going to be a process because of the cap situation and this and that, Philadelphia is not a place where you get time. We do not give you the proper amount of, we're not going to give you 2 years. We might say, oh, we know we're going to suck this year, but as soon as we start sucking, we're going to be upset about that. So it's hard to put college coaches in that scenario. Now, real quick before we go too far, I just want to say, everybody in the chat, I love how interactive you guys are and like arguing back and forth, but please do not be hiding people. We don't do that here. I will take away. I don't know how you do it, but I'll just take everybody's, wrench.
Take away your wrench.
I'll just take everybody's wrench. I don't know how to do it, but we will do it. So just please stop, hiding people. We're just trying to have fun, talk some Eagles. Everybody has.
The one thing I like about that, the Colts offensive coordinator and how we were able to interview him is that Frank Reich had to have talked to him a little bit before he even decided to accept an interview and say, you know what? Yeah, I think you can kind of manage a guy like Carson. Like, he wouldn't set him up to be like, oh, like, bro, go do the interview and laughing behind the wall. Like, oh, he doesn't know what he's getting into. Like, I've assumed that Frank Reich must have had a conversation with him and was like, yeah, that can be something you can do over there. And this is what Carson likes to do and stuff like that. Like, I feel like that might be one of our best options right there, just because of the familiarity between the coaches. So he can talk to Frank Reich a little bit and say, what was kind of some of the things that you had to deal with over there? What do you know about Howie, Jeffrey Roseman? What's Carson's personality like? Those are things that someone off the streets or Josh McDaniels or someone wouldn't know, because unless they have some secret meetings together, I don't think we were sharing that kind of information or buddy with Bill Belichick. I feel like there's a mini rivalry there. So to have someone that is familiar, at least that can talk to someone that's familiar with the whole system and everything like that, I think that kind of puts them up a notch.
Yeah, honestly, before you go, Gates, I just want to say this real quick. That would be the awkwardest conversation, because now knowing, especially that we were trying to fire him before the Super Bowl, I don't know if Frank Reich is the seal of approval we're looking for in Philly, but go ahead, Steve.
Touche.
But you know what? He does. He I think he has an affection for Carson Wentz. I didn't realize this before. I didn't know that they had this close bond. I didn't know that stuff. We don't, we're not really made aware of that stuff until they're gone. And what I mean? Then you come to find out, no, he was never really that close with Doug. He was closer with Frank. He absolutely hated when we had Flip here, John DeFilippo. But he respected John DeFilippo. He took his advice. He might have shot his mouth back at him a little bit. But, DeFilippo's like, look, bro, this quarterback room, this is my castle, man.
And that's what Carson needs. He needs someone. And you know what? And that's what kind of we talked about the other day, was that us fans, we see 4-10 or 4, whatever the record was with the tie.
4.5.
and Doug's fired. So that's all we see. We see like it seems like a reaction response to a bad season. But with those other guys gone, for all we know, behind the scenes, it's been on a steady decline. That the next season Carson comes back, his back's hurt, and we barely get into the playoffs. We need like the Vikings to lose, and I think someone else to lose in order to make the playoffs that year. Last year, our season should have been over once we lost to the Dolphins when we put up 32 points and we still lost to the Dolphins. But instead, we got lucky that our division was trash and we were able to scrape out 4 wins in a row. So it's not like we've been phenomenal since guys like Frank Reich left. And I think that has to have played a part into these kind of decisions as to it looked rash decisions because of the bad season and how quick it was when the season was over. But this has to be an ongoing thing. And if they believe in Carson had to be chirping in their ears somewhat when Frank Reich left and things were going downhill.
Yeah, I think so.
What did
you guys make of that article?
The one with about John McMullen, I think, wrote it.
No, not John McMullen. It was hang on, I have it on my phone somewhere. It was what's his name from the Inquirer wrote it.
About Wentz?
Yeah, the one about Wentz. Yeah, no, it's not the EJ Smith one.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Jeff McLean wrote it.
McLean, okay, yeah, I knew it was like a mix something. It was
yeah.
What was that? He was talking about the whole Wentz and Doug Peterson situation and everything.
Yeah. I had some difficulties with that article. Like, number one, I do think there are elements of truth of what's being said there. The problem is you're getting one side of a story. Like, you're getting these sources who are giving their side of a story. And by the way, some of the things that are being shared can only be known by certain people.
Right.
That's the thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like other guys are in on the quarterback room. There's only so many people who could possibly be in there. Right. The head coach, the OC, the other quarterbacks, and the quarterback coach. Maybe you were bringing a Scangarello in there. Maybe you were bringing Marty in there. I heard that Marty was working with Jalen Hurts during this past season. But like when I look at this stuff, man, there was a lot of inflammatory like stuff written in there that like on one hand, like it's probably true. Some of it is probably true. On the other hand, like there was like they said they did an independent coaches evaluation, and I was talking to 2020 Vision about this. And he was like, well, it's Gabe. They did an independent coaches evaluation of the sacks. And they said that 2/3 of the sacks were caused by Carson. I'm like, dude, do the numbers on that. We had like 32 sacks by week 8 when they did this study. You're telling me that you think the offense only gave up 10 or 11 of those sacks? I'm not buying that. I want them to look me in the face, like with a straight face and tell me that. So I can look at them and ask them, like, when were you dropped on your head exactly? Like, no way I'm buying that. Like, no. Like, there are definitely some things in there. Like, I was like, whoa. Like I do think that he's hard to coach. I think that's definitely true, man. I've been around quarterbacks. I've coached them. I can tell you right now, I've had kids break down and cry on the field. Like, I'm talking 17, 18-year-olds whining and crying, throwing a temper tantrum like they're freaking 10 on, like, because I corrected their footwork. But they didn't want me to do it in front of that little girl over there staring at them.
Exactly, yeah. No matter how older we get, it doesn't matter what age we are. It doesn't matter what stage of the game we get into. You're always going to have an ego. Now, to stay with McLean, I gave my face because McLean, along with a lot of Eagles beat writers, I'm going to be 100% honest. There are abundant amount of great Eagles reporters. Like I said earlier, we had Zach Berman on this morning. Shout out to him. But even he said this morning, his silence, talking about Wentz now, his silence to all this stuff is probably the more worrisome thing. Because if it's not true, then why not come in? And he said you don't want to set the precedence of, always having to bat down some type of drama. But like you said, there was some stuff said in there. That was some pretty, like you said, inflammatory. I like that word. There was some pretty bad stuff put in there. Like, as a man, I'm coming out and I'm saying, nah. I could deal with you just saying I don't care about them thinking I want to get traded. They could think I hate Doug, whatever. But there was some stuff in there that's really just coming at your soul, Carson. You know what I'm saying? They're really coming at you, bro. Like, and you want your franchise guy to say something at some point, even if it's not to bat it down, even if it's to say, hey, it is what it is. That's how I feel. You know, like, we need something. We need something.
Yeah, you know, that's what bothered me is that they were talking about what was going on in the film room, right? And I will say that I didn't think that Jeff McLane held up to scrutiny sometimes in that article, because I don't think that the evidence he offered sometimes necessarily matched his claims. But like, he was talking about being in the quarterback room, Press Taylor running film, asking Carson, like, hey, why didn't you go with this read? You know, what was going on here? And it, you know, but then he's saying like he's scapegoating by saying like pointing out the pressure, and like, it's like, okay, I want to know what play, like, okay, you say this, but what is the play we're talking about? What's the context? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
How do you know he's scapegoating? Like, we're only getting one side of this. Like, that's the issue I have with it. Like, it could be right. You could absolutely be right, but like, I need more context to make that kind of judgment call on that. Like, I definitely think there's got to be truth to it, because it just keeps happening too much. But
yeah, I mean, but to put out a book, McLane put out a book like that. You know, it's one thing if you put out a tweet and you're like, sources tell me, you know, lottie dottie, we like to party. But my man put out a full on article just breaking another man down. Like, and it really made no sense to me. That's really what kills me. It's like, it's one thing to try and get a dramatic headline or get some drama going, but that wasn't a headline. That was literally you just trying to talk junk about Carson.
I mean, so one of the guys was clearly, it was either Kelsey or JP. Yeah. Kelsey or JP was clearly one.
Go ahead, Brandon.
You know that, right? You guys know that, right? Clearly one of the sources was Kelsey or JP.
Why you say that?
Just look at the context of what he said. He said he gives you when it happened, right? That they asked to go have Carson benched. It was during the bye. It was like right at the bye. And he said it was a veteran offensive lineman. There were only 2 veteran offensive linemen in that game.
That's true.
JP and Kelsey, which neither one of them had the nerve to go talk about another person being benched. Like, to be real.
That's true. That's true. That's very true. I didn't think of that. I kind of scanned over that. I'm not going to lie.
With that kind of stuff being out, does it kind of make it worrisome for Carson of the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing. You're in Philly. You're going to get this no matter what. This is going to keep on coming. This is not going to be the last article written about him. This is not going to be the last time he struggles in the Eagles uniform. So, you know, we've talked about this before. It comes down to your mentality. And if he does not have the strong mentality to either come out and say something, you know what I'm saying? And to his credit and to other people's credit, maybe somebody is saying to him, you know, just let it die down. Let it die down. But those people are dumb too, because this is not going to die down. This is only going to get worse by you not saying anything. Mm-hmm. You know, so
that's how I found out about the whole thing about the agents. I started following McLane's sources. I'm like, yo, you got a historian on your trail now. Like, I'm gonna check everything that he's And like, what really bothered me about him was there was literally one of his sources where he literally sourced himself, and I'm like, dude, like, come on, man, you can't source yourself, bro. Like, I can't take you seriously on that.
That's true too. He said probably Jamon Brown. I mean, he's technically a veteran. He didn't act like it at all this whole season.
Yeah, I'd have to check the date of when Jamon Brown was finally, like, because it was, I know he got kind of let go, then he got brought back, then he got, then he finally got really let go. So I'd have to really check that and to see where he was. But like, if it was Jamon Brown, bro, like, come on, man.
If you listen to that,
like, come on, like, dude.
I don't. And to answer your question, am I afraid for Carson? I'm more afraid for whoever the head coach is going to come in, because you're coming into a firestorm. Like tomorrow, if they announce the head coach tomorrow, say it's Deuce. Like, I hope for everybody's sake that it is Deuce, because I think he's the only person that can probably handle the storm that's going to be at that press conference.
He's Philly strong.
Exactly. Yeah, like, because they are going to come at you. They are coming with their talents.
Yeah.
How it is.
Forget about the money. Forget about the salary cap. Forget about the salary cap. Okay. Forget about just a pure quarterback controversy. Like, you got a roster split.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, let's be real. You have internal strife within that locker room. You need someone who can be like, yo, I'm telling you right now, something gets out of this locker room, it's not going to be a fun week. It's not going to be a fun week, gentlemen.
And if you don't take Deuce, I should say. So like, let's say we do hire Josh McDaniels. You say like you said, you have a roster split right now. You know how many people, the first people they're going to are the people that tweeted out, "Oh, let's put it in the universe, Deuce for head coach." They're going right to those people. So Deuce didn't get the head coach. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be like that Cardi B meme. Like, you know, my mama told me to come ask you what's going on with that head coach position. I mean, it sucks, and I don't really necessarily like it about our media. I do feel like we make things way worse than they need to be sometimes, and fans. Mm-hmm. But it's gonna happen. Like the first press conference is going to be crazy. So let's switch gears a little bit, because I feel like we could talk hours about this whole coaching situation. How are you guys feeling about the draft? How the closer we get, the more clarity we get on the coaching situation. Let's move forward as if Josh McDaniels is signed right now, just so we can make it a little bit easier on ourselves. If McDaniels was our head coach, are you looking at maybe dropping back in the draft? Are you still going with the same plan? What are your guys' thoughts? I'll have you start, Brandon, then we'll move down to Steve.
I'm going to stand my ground. I'm not dropping back unless something is given to us that is just astronomical, and it's just like you'd be dumb to pass up on it. Other than that, I feel like we need, I guess it's kind of like a contradiction what I say. I say we have holes to fill. So if you trade back and you get more picks, then you have a better chance of filling those holes. I just feel like with this organization, we're not in the top 10 a lot when it comes to draft picks. And so I don't want to get out of the top 6 when we can get one of the top wide receivers, one of the top linebackers, or one of the top defensive backs at that position. One of them is going to fall to us. There's just no way around it unless everyone in front of us skips on a quarterback for some reason. At least 2 quarterbacks are going. So we're going to get one of the top kids from the country at their position. And I feel like that's our need. I feel like it's our turn to get one of those star players and not miss on them. It would be so hard because no matter which way you went, you're grabbing a star in college. I mean, you got to hope they translate, but no one would ever fault you if the kid didn't pan out because he was on the chart as this is the next number one up on our player chart. That's who it is. So if it's either a Jamar Chase or a Devontae Smith drops back, or Micah Parsons, any of those guys, Surtain, I would be pumped to get any of those guys. I just feel like trading back, you just put Howie Roseman in a position to mess up. I don't know why. I just don't trust him. Moving out the top 6 seems so easy. And as soon as you get past number 10, then at that point, it's kind of just like there are still good players, but you have a higher chance of messing up there.
It's good points. I completely understand what you're saying, which is, top 10 picks hard to mess up. It really is. I mean, they happen. People mess them up, but it is much tougher to mess that pick up. Out of all the years we could finally get a top 10 pick, though, it's got to be this one. So where the scouting is going to be difficult. Look at Micah Parsons. I think he's a top 10 talent. He didn't play in 2020. So I don't know. I really don't know. Dude's been off for a year. Who knows? And there's a lot of people like that. You have the kid from Miami, Rousseau. Man, if you look at the athletic profile of this kid and what he did in 2019, man, I think he can be a legit pass rusher. But he didn't play in 2020. Scouting that guy and where his value is, that's be kind of tough. And there's not a lot of pass rushers in this draft, to be honest. There's just not. I mean, maybe more guys are going to declare, and we'll see. Maybe that's going to happen. But I don't know. I know a lot of guys want to draft receiver up high, and I get it. Hey, man, if we have a chance to finally get this receiving core right and get one guy that can then open it up for everybody else, I certainly understand the argument. You get one guy, and now Rager looks like a complete, playmaker. Now you got, Hightower and the younger guys can come in and actually make plays. I want JJ to succeed, but I'm not going on the record and saying I think that's going to happen. But People, there are a lot of people that pump that he caught one out of bounds pass. Like, no.
Yeah. He blocks more on his routes than he actually catches. I think his block per route ran is pretty high.
You'll trade back. That's your stance on that?
Well, see, here's the thing. What I'm saying about the top 10 applies throughout the entire draft, though. It's not like it stops at the top 10 and then, like, no, it applies throughout the entire draft. Like, dudes took time off. Some teams only played like 4 games. But I will say this. If I'm sitting there at 6 and I'm targeting, like say, guys, I'm just assuming. I'm not saying this is going to happen. Say Josh McCown's your pick and, Mayo comes in to be your defensive coordinator. I think there is hope that the front office might reshape its viewpoint about linebackers because linebackers are going to be very important in that scheme. So what if I can trade back? I can add an extra second-round pick. Like we might have to do something like they give up a team gives up their second. If we're talking like 12th pick or something, their first round pick, their second round pick, and like their 7th round pick for like our 1st, our 5th, and our 6th. It'd probably be something like that probably. Because you're not talking about a huge difference in spots. But what that could do is like, okay, now I'm picking at 12. What if I'm sitting there and like Zavon Collins is there? I probably would take him. I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's a good football player. I like the kid's film a lot. Like, my hope is that when this kid comes to the combine at 260 pounds, is a dude that has a lot of lateral quickness, actually, he's not going to test that well, though. And I got a feeling that those dudes that get way too concerned about, like, what a dude's 40 time is and what they run the 3-cone in and what they run the 20-yard shuttle in, they're going to get way too involved in that crap, and this kid's going to fall to the back half of the first round or early second round. That would be my hope, so I can get him in that second round early. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think this kid's really talented. But, I mean –
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just feel like you can get a receiver in. Like, look, I'm not saying these guys are Devontae Smith, but if I can be honest, even about Devontae Smith, like the dude's been incredible in college. He's 175 pounds though. Like,
that's soaking wet.
How big is Hollywood Brown? He looks about
probably pretty close. Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Body size isn't the only thing that tells you, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. I get nervous with smaller frames just because we're in Philadelphia, and I feel like the wind injures people because it's just crazy how many injuries we have. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. We're at 50 people right now. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. If you don't know who Gate City Sports is, you are asleep. Go check the link in the description for his channel. Shout out to Cowboys fans only, too. I don't usually shout out Cowboys fans, but, he wanted us to pass on Chase and everything, but he knows we ain't dumb. He's trying to play us. But, shout out to him. Go check his channel out if you want to go troll a Cowboys fan.
Samuel Jr. That'd be dope.
I would love to sign it. Look, I think this draft, if we're going to move back.
Question. If you move back. If you move back and you're targeting a receiver, see, here's my problem. And I'm early in the scouting process, guys. I haven't broken down enough film yet to go definitively with who I would draft yet. I only know a few guys I feel strongly about right now. But if I'm sitting there and Rondale Moore, who some analysts are saying is the second best receiver in this draft class, at the end of the day, the dude's like 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
Like, is he just a slot?
At that point, I'm taking Waddle. If Waddle's available and he's available, I probably would take Waddle over him, to be honest, just because of the size.
Yeah, well, and neither one of them are exactly big. I mean, they're about an inch taller and 2-pound difference. But
hey, I mean, that's 2 pounds,
But like what I'm saying is that if those guys are really slot guys in the NFL, like, don't get me wrong, a slot guy can have a big impact on a football game. But are you picking those kind of guys in the top 15?
We have a slot guy. We drafted Rager.
Yeah, I think they want to play Rager as a flanker, though. But
we have about 15 slots.
And look, the player on my name might not be there either. But if I'm sitting there in the second round and I'm falling in love with guys like Jalen Waddle and Rondale Moore, why not take Amon-Ra St. Brown?
I feel like this is a really good draft. I feel like this is a very deep draft at a lot of different positions. Me personally, I've said this on a couple of things. I don't care. I don't want to say I don't want or I don't care about. I personally would probably go defense in the first 2 rounds. I feel like there's more offensive weapons the deeper you get, and it's a little bit easier to use the measurables on an offensive player like a wide receiver or something like that. Obviously, you got to see them on the field. But with defensive players, I feel like there's like a handful of really good ones. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you can walk out of the first 2 rounds with a linebacker and a cornerback or safety and feel very good about those 2 picks. I feel like if we take a wide receiver or even a running back, if we are maybe even a lineman, like if we reach for someone on the offensive side, I feel like it's going to be a risk, no matter who it is, unless it's like Jamar Chase. You get lucky, you drop back and get lucky with him. But other than that, I feel like you're taking a risk on the offensive side. I feel like there's more sure bets up early in the draft when it comes to the defense. So that's where I stand on it. I personally am just going to stay away from wide receiver till probably later in the draft, to be honest. That's just kind of where I'm at. I don't feel like we need a wide receiver right now. I feel like we've put so much into that position right now. It's just too much right now. Let's take a little bit of time, worry about other things. We need to get this defense right. I wouldn't even be mad at a defensive lineman. I really wouldn't.
There's brothers that in this draft that you can draft. One played at North Carolina, one played at Wake Forest. You can go look if you want a big physical receiver, right? You can easily, and like, I'm not a huge fan of Wake Forest. I'm out here in Greensboro. Like, I taught Winston-Salem where Wake Forest is. Like, look, Sage Surratt. He's a big dude. 6'3", a good wingspan. Probably not going to – maybe he goes up the draft board. I won't say where they're going to go yet because Combine hasn't happened. Pro Days haven't happened. Like, guys haven't even really dug into the film yet. But I would say right now, he's probably – yes, Philly Insider. That's exactly where I'm going. But he's probably a third round talent is where I would have him, 3rd, 4th round talent. He might go up from that though. I mean, it just depends. But what about his brother at North Carolina? He's a linebacker. He's a decent linebacker too. Like, we could use talent, man. We need an infusion of talent. That's really what's going to have to happen here. Right. We really could use some youth along the defensive line too. But the issue is, I don't think this – I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind as I start getting into the film. I don't feel this is a particularly great defensive line draft.
No, I think there's like 3. I think there's like 3 that are like really solid. Maybe 2 of them could go in the first round, maybe even early. But, I think there's 2 that could probably go first round and then maybe 1 that you would feel comfortable like a little later in the rounds. And obviously I'm not going to remember their names, but we're going through mock drafts, so I'm sure we'll bring them up. But, like I said before, I really feel like we are getting very old on the defensive side. We need a lot of help on that defensive side. So and we don't have the money to go crazy on the free agent market. And even if we do, realistically, if Howie is able to get us into a situation where we can spend a little bit of money on a decent wide receiver, there's some names out there. There's definitely some names out there. This is probably one of the best free agent markets in a long time.
If you're able to get like a wide receiver in the draft, in free agency, like if he's able to get some wiggle room, then that would only help the draft in a sense. Because then you wouldn't have to clamor for a wide receiver early in the draft. You can have everyone be happy with getting a defensive player. Like you said, we need help everywhere: linebacker, safety, a second corner. Like, there's so many spots that need to be filled on that defense.
Second corner, a third corner, a fourth corner.
Seriously, man.
God.
We need about 22 draft picks, all right, for offense and defense.
We really do.
So let me ask you guys this question. Looking forward, if I was to give you a box, give you 2 different boxes, 2 different choices, and I'm telling you in box A, you can have a franchise wide receiver. For the next 10 years, you're going to have this wide receiver. He's going to be a Pro Bowl wide receiver, great wide receiver, right? And in the other box, I'm giving you an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl, same level talent, but he's a middle linebacker. He's a 10-year middle linebacker. Which one are you taking? Are you taking a 10-year centerpiece for your offense, hopefully, or are you taking a middle linebacker for your defense for the next 10 years?
Oof. That's a tough one because I think there's a couple things at play here. Just number one, I think it's easier to identify wide receiver talent through drafts. I just do. I think it's every 3 to 4 years you're going to find guys that you can plug and play. You really can. Are you going to keep finding Calvin Johnson? No. But you can find Nelson Aguilar's. You can, you know what I'm saying? You can find serviceable guys. Just, don't get a Nelson Aguilar in Philly because that clearly didn't work out. But in terms of like the linebacker, my question with linebacker would be is how are we going to value the linebacker play and what kind of impact will it have on the defense, like the scheme per se.
Right.
Now, if it's Mayo and it's going to be a linebacker dominant defense, like, yeah, man, I would say get the mic. Go get the mic.
Yeah. If I take the coaches out of it and I'm putting my Madden hat on, I might go wide receiver only because if you look at a team like the Chiefs who don't have the best of defenses, but they're out here killing teams because they have an all-pro wide receiver like Tyreek Hill to kind of open up the whole offense. I mean, you have to worry about Tyreek. Even as good as Travis Kelce is, you can't allot more services or more players to really pay attention to Travis because as soon as you leave one guy alone with Tyreek Hill, it's a wrap. Tyreek is either in the slot going across the field and just beating his man one-on-one, or he's just taking off on a streak route, and it is what it is. So I feel like if you can get a guy like that on your offense who can open up the playbook for everybody else around him, the defense, I feel like you can get away with having a bunch of guys that just feed off each other and just work well together and can just manage a game and hold teams to maybe a bend but don't break off defense. Whereas if you're not scoring points or if you don't have a player where the other team is scared and they can't scheme for, or they're like, oh, we don't have to worry about anyone on their offense, kind of like how we are now. No one's fearful of our offense. I mean, you're not going to double Jalen Reagor. You're not going to double Travis Fulgham. You're just not going to move pieces elsewhere to make our offense fly. So if those are the two options, I think I would go wide receiver, but that would also only be if I can manage the defense somehow to make it work.
Our defense sucks. I'm going
let me ask you guys a question now. If you're sitting there, so if we're sitting there in 6, and let's say Chase and Devontae Smith both come off the board, which is possible. I'm not going to say that's likely, but it's a possibility. They're both off the board. Would you take a Jalen Waddle at 6? I mean, me personally,
No.
Like for me, a top 10 receiver has to be a Calvin Johnson type talent. There's just no way to live up to that if you're not that good, that kind of selection. To me, the next guy I have on my board, I know some people go right immediately like Rondale Moore, and I think he's a good football player, but I have concerns about where he fits in terms of like, is he a slot? To me, it's Bateman. Like Bateman's the next guy, but I'm not, that would be like top 20. Like he's not top 10.
I wouldn't be mad if we got to a point that we're at 6 and Howie's like, all right, all 3 of the guys we really want are still there. And they answered some phone calls. If we go back to number 9 and we look at it again and we're like, all right, we need a lot of players. You know what I'm saying? Right. If we can, I don't trust Howie. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a smart guy. But if we have a board of 3 people that we feel, or 5 people, or whatever it may be, that we feel very, very comfortable with moving forward, and we can still, like you said earlier, Gay City, if we can still accrue picks, that will be huge for our organization. If we can move back to 10 to 12, maybe further back and accrue some picks and get somebody like Surtain, get somebody like Waddle, get somebody like that, I'm cool with it. Because you're building. This is one of the most important drafts. We said it last year, because the guys were getting older, but this is it. This is really it. This draft can really set us back if we don't do well in it. So,
So do you guys have a surprise? You guys have a surprise pick going to leapfrog somebody? I got one.
I think quarterback-wise, I said this before, I think either Kyle Wilson or Trask, or maybe even Mac Jones. I heard Mac Jones been falling backwards, to be honest. I could be wrong about that, but I feel like Trask or Wilson might jump up into that 3rd spot. And I think there might end up being 4 quarterbacks gone by number 12. That's what I think.
Oh, I think
you got one?
The only anything that would surprise me is if we took a quarterback at number 6 and didn't even trade. That would just blow my mind. I'd be crying grown man tears and swinging at the air.
So what I'll say is this. I see momentum now for one big shakeup at the top of the draft. a lot of people really thought that I can't say this kid's name, the first name, Penei Sewell from Oregon.
Yes.
They thought he was a lock. They thought he was locked to be the first tackle. Now there's movement for Slater. Now Slater, who was originally like mid, like 15th to 20th, is now climbing into that top 10. I wouldn't be shocked if a team prefers Slater more, because to me, tackles sometimes can be the hardest one to judge what team is going to go with what player. And that's the one I could see that could shake things up. Quarterbacks, absolutely. Like, I think quarterbacks can be really difficult to judge too in that same manner, because scheme, the fit for the team, like that's going to impact what guy goes. But I'm telling you, man, I'm hearing a lot of buzz about Slater, and for me personally, like that one shocked me. Like, I didn't see it coming, and now like it looks like he might legitimately start leapfrogging people.
There's a lot of people that say Penny's kind of overrated. Like, I've heard a lot, and I don't think he's necessarily overrated. I feel like the scheme that he's in, he's a very athletic player. He's a very athletic tackle, and I think that was on full display when he was in Oregon, and it was very, very obvious. I think what's going to hold him back is probably going to be the technicalities of the game. I think in Oregon they don't necessarily run that pro style, so there's a couple things that might hold him back. That could definitely happen. I could definitely see that. Happen. I mean, I just want, like everybody's saying, I just want us to pick the best player at this point, because we have to do this the right way. No matter who our coach is, no matter who our coaching staff is, this is going to be a huge pick for us. This is going to shape our franchise. This is going to be, you don't pick a backup at number 6. You're going to be picking a guy you want to be, for the rest of the franchise for 10 more years. Like I said earlier, this is going to be that pick. So let me ask you guys a question. This is my favorite question to ask. And you already know it, Brandon. So we wake up tomorrow. What would your headline be? What do you want the headline for the Philadelphia Eagles to be tomorrow morning? Is it going to be a hire, someone else getting fired, a signing? What would you want to see waking up?
Eagles hired Deuce Staley. No, I mean, I kind of hope that happens just as a fan. You got to also pray that everything works out too. But if he actually has good assistant coaches that are rumored to be, then I don't mind Deuce being the CEO type of head coach, the kind of coach that decides those bigger things, like, are we going for it on 4th down? Are we kicking this field goal, or are we going to go for 2? Like, stuff like that, and trying to be the face of the franchise and being the leader of men. If you have a good offensive coordinator, I don't need you calling plays. I don't need to have the head coach that calls plays and does every little thing around the NFL team. I just need someone that can lead these men from old to young to go out and try to win games and be able to manage different coaches and everything like that, and let the assistants do the play calling, do all the little nuances and stuff, and you just be able to lead everyone to collectively. So that would be my headline for tomorrow, at least.
This might get me demonetized, but this is funny. I don't care. That would be a funny headline. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that would be a good headline, not the written text. But Deuce being hired, I like that one. For me, Howie Roseman's traded for. Let me see. Good headline. Honestly, I think a good headline would be Howie Roseman begins negotiations with X, Y, and Z players for restructuring their contracts. I think we've got to get guys to start restructuring their contracts now. And if not, I think we're going to be in a really, really big cap crunch area, and dudes are going to get axed. Like, I'll give you some names. I would love to see restructure. Brandon Graham. He's got to restructure that, man. It's too much. Way too much money. He said he would do it, so we'll see how that works. Brandon Brooks. Love him. Good football player. He's been hurt too much. He's got, when he's on the field, he's one of the best, but he hasn't been on the field, man, so he hasn't really earned that contract yet. You can say that contracts are earned in the previous years, not the current ones, but you know what I mean? Like, give back a little, man. You got paid to kind of chill out a little bit.
Exactly.
Lane Johnson. Lane, like, come on, bro. Help us out. Kelsey. Kelsey needs to restructure because if he just retires, we still take a hit. Like Kelsey needs to restructure. You know, those are three guys right there. I think we need to pull the Band-Aid.
How would you feel about just trading Ertz? Not Ertz, my bad. Lane Johnson, because I mean he's like one PED abuse away from like not seeing the whole season. So I mean, this might be the last of a couple seasons that he has value. How would you feel about that?
Perplexed. On one hand, you have to really believe in Andre Dillard, or you have to believe that you can get somebody in this draft. Now, I know the argument could be like, oh, but wait a minute, we had a young rookie that looked pretty good, but he's also been hurt. Like he's a little light. He's a little light to play tackle, I think, right now. I think he needs to put a little size, a little strength on. I do think he's talented, though. I think he's skilled. Andre Dillard would ease things because you could move Mulatto over to right tackle, and Mulatto could easily hold that down. But Andre Dillard, man, like he's a bit of an enigma. Like I don't think he played like a lot of people thought like, oh no, if you look at what he did, like, oh, he shut down like Mac. No, he didn't. He was barely lined up on Mac. He didn't, and he got beat pretty good in that Bears game. Like the year he wasn't that good. And then Quinn abused him in Dallas. Like he really wasn't that good. That doesn't mean he won't be good. I still saw skill. I mean, there's a skill set there to develop around him, but he's got his own little kind of issues upstairs that he's got to work through. Like he's got some issues up there. Even he's admitted that he gets a little emotional. So like he's got to work that out, man. He's got to mature. I
don't know where we find these big men at.
On one hand, I get what you're saying. On one hand, I get what you're saying. Like at some point, like you if you don't move on and you keep him around till he gets to the next end of a contract, there's going to be no value for him anymore, really. Or that value will be greatly diminished. So, like, you're kind of danged if you do, danged if you don't, if you mess it up. Right. But, I mean, honestly, you think the ankle's going to be degenerative now?
So I hear what you're saying about the value, but you could also look at it a different way. Is that even if his value is not that great at the end of the contract, what did he give you during those last couple of years before the end of his contract? Because if he kills it for the next 2 years or whatever his contract is, then you kind of get that value there because you're not necessarily going to, like you said, plug in one of the young guys and next thing you know, they're not going to, if they don't do well, then like we lose that. And if everything works out in our favor and both Lane and Brandon can be healthy, that's one of the best, if not the best tandem linemen in the league. Like even just watching old film of like in the Super Bowl of them literally moving step by step, everything together, everything was just copy and paste. Like it was just insane just watching them synchronized swimming basically. So the fact is if he can stay healthy and like you said, if he doesn't get caught with PEDs or something and everything works out in a perfect world, then I wouldn't trade Lane at this point because that's one of the things we need. We need a strong offensive line no matter who's at quarterback, if it's Jalen Hurts or Carson Wentz.
So what if we're in the position that we're at pick number 20 and someone calls us, right? And they're just like, listen, we'll give you pick number 20, throw us Lane Johnson and like a 4th or 5th round pick. I'd do that. I'd do that quick as heck. I would do that so quick. I'd drive him personally to whatever team that was. You get me back in the 1st round for Lane? I'm doing that. I don't know. Me personally, I'm doing that.
And then what are you doing? What are you going to draft?
I would. If we're going to be bad anyways, my thing is, you might as well. If you're going to rebuild, because we're going to be bad. I mean, we're going to be bad. There's no way we're going to keep all these players. Like that's the thing. We have to get under this cap number. So unless Howie Roseman can figure out some like great talking terms with some people, like you have to figure out who has the most value. It's either we're going to cut a lot of people or we're going to try and trade who has value. So to me, like you said, while Jack Driscoll, while our backups might not be necessarily proven, if you're gonna rebuild, you got to rebuild. And I'm not saying, let go of everybody. I'm just saying there's got to be certain people you got to say, hey, if the right call comes, I'm going to listen.
So what do you think the line will be next year then?
If we're letting go of him?
Yeah.
if we were to let go of him. I would do Mailata on the left, Sayamalu at the left guard, center, hopefully Jason Kelsey still here, Brandon Brooks, and then I would give Jack Driscoll a start, see if he can do it. And if, you still have Mailata. So if Dillard, best case scenario, Dillard is good. Dillard is a first-round pick. He plays like a first-round pick. If Jordan Mailata becomes that big V-type guy, and if, there's so many pieces on this team that I feel like we're just going to bury someone at some point. I mean, if we're going to suck, we're going to suck. I'm not saying that get rid of everybody. Like I said, I'm just saying there are certain places on this roster that I feel like we can move on from some of these older people. So, like, if he was to have to let go and we save Ertz because of that, you know what I'm saying? Or we save somebody on our defensive line because of that. Like, we're going to have to cut a lot of people. So
let me ask you a question though. So with your lineup, okay, so with your front line here, you get a guy like, and Josh McDaniels comes in, he's your head coach. This is a guy he's pretty balanced in pass to run ratio. He's going to run the ball. Do you trust that Jack Driscoll or Andre Dillard could give you the same push that someone like, Mailata can, and like what you're going to get from Lane Johnson? We know Lane Johnson can get a push if he's healthy.
I mean, they're definitely not going to be Lane. I mean, that's, they're definitely not going to be as good as Lane. But do I feel maybe? I don't know. I don't know what they are. It's so hard to really know what this offensive line is. We went through 14 of them. So,
yeah.
I do like what I saw out of Driscoll. I do feel like he can be a good player. I think he looks a lot like Lane to me, like a Lane light kind of.
He is. Lane Johnson is not a naturally heavy guy, and I would say the same thing for Jack Driscoll. These are not naturally heavy guys. These are guys that are clearly adding that weight in that strength. Like, these are guys I think after the NFL you're going to see them, they're going to thin down a lot. Like, they're not going to be 300-pound guys, I don't think. My question, like I said, I think in pass pro, I think Driscoll's really good in pass pro. I think, to me, he shocked me with how well he played. Man, I know losing Prince, we could say that losing Prince Tega is not as big a deal as people will make it out to be, that he had that rod in his leg and it was going to be a long development, but man, the dude was talented. And I was not a fan of losing him. If I had to set my lineup, I'll tell you how I see it. I think they're going to walk Lane Johnson back slowly because you need him fully healthy. So what I would see it as is you would probably have Andre Dillard at your left tackle. I think you're going to have Nate Herbig as your left guard. I think Suamalu is going to be your center. I think Brandon Brooks will be your right guard. And I think Mailata is going to be your right tackle. I think that even though Jack Driscoll really hasn't played on the left side, I trust Jack Driscoll to learn both sides more so than I trust Dillard to do it right now.
I respect that. I think Mailata, like I said, he reminds me of kind of that big V that we had. Like, like he can do whatever really is just asked of him, and he's going to do it to the best of his abilities. And it's pretty good. He's pretty good. I feel like we can all agree there. Jordan Mailata definitely turned some heads last year. So I want to ask one more question before we get out of here, because I keep on seeing this like throughout the chat. And, every time people bring up a coach, the first thing they say is, oh, he'll run the ball more. He'll run the ball more. Are we at all prioritizing a running back in this draft? Is that something that you think day 2, maybe early day 3, something that we're going to be looking at in the draft?
I think so. Happens when Miles Sanders goes down. I mean, unless, like you said, we don't really have we don't have cap money to get like a free agent or something. So unless we're trading for a running back that can works out and contract wise, we're going to have to get somebody young. And once Miles Sanders went down last year, I love Boston Scott. That dude, when he has a big play, I get excited for him. And it's probably because he's like 5'6". Like it's a good time seeing like him do well. But that's not an answer that we need. We need a solid 1-2 punch or 1-2-3 punch. And unfortunately, a guy like Corey Clement just kind of fell off. I don't know if it's injury or what, but from 2017 to now, the guy doesn't look the same. And it's unfortunate. I like Corey too, but I think we definitely need another running back. do I think it comes in the first 2 rounds? Probably not, but probably like a day, like round 3, 4 type of situation. Maybe we can try to target a running back there.
I think it depends on who the coach is to begin with, but I definitely think that we tried it this past year. We won. I think it was Dobbins we went after. I think we wanted Dobbins with the Hurts pick, but that didn't work out. I would say this depends on the coach, because right now, outside of Dallas Goedert, who's really going to play that role if you got a guy that wants to run 21 and 22 man personnel? So, I mean, me personally, as I'm looking at kind of this draft, the guys I would probably look at is like these physical contact bounce backs. Like, I don't think we'd go at Najee Harris, because I think that unless he's flipped into the 3rd round, which is very unlikely to happen, it's not going to be there. But I think the kid from Oklahoma, Stevenson, he's a big kid. He's a big kid. Like, I could see him if that's what they're looking for. It depends on the coach. Do they want a scat back? Do they want a contact bounce back? Do they want more of a lead blocker? Like, what do they want? You know what I mean? Like,
you have it on the roster. I like Elijah Holyfield.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit of a high runner, though. But, yeah, I mean, I think he's more talented than he's been given credit for, and I think he should have gotten some kind of play this year. But I don't know why they chose not to. It made no sense to me. What was the point of keeping him around? I didn't understand it. Like,
Jordan Howard, too. There's so many people on this team that it's like, what was the point? Like, you literally just sit there and you're like, wait, so what was the point of that? Like, we get all hype. Who else can we talk? I feel like it was at running back a lot, too. Huntley got called up, didn't really do much. You know, you can go down this roster. Even on the wide receivers, like you look at Alshon Jeffrey, the way that his injury was handled was totally just idiotic. I think is keeping it nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, we can look at everybody on this roster and just be like, what is going on? But look, man, I think we're gonna end this now. We're gonna get out of here. But look, Steve, I appreciate you so much for coming on here. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, man.
Like an hour and 30 minutes, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys for inviting me on, and it's no big deal. Hour and 30 minutes doesn't bother me, guys. I mean, I'm usually doing the marathons with the Battle Birds podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, we've done ones with obviously I've done one with Philly Talk podcast, and obviously we've done one with Fresh. And me and Fresh were on here for like 3 hours, and I was just looking at Fresh like, how do you do this, man? And you guys go for hours on end. So, but like I said to everybody in the chat, I appreciate everybody that hung out with us. If you guys do not know who Gate City Sports is, please do check the link in the description for his channel. Check out Battle Birds podcast. I can't wait till the season comes back, because I love hearing you guys talk every weekend just about how everything's going. But other than that, man, do you guys have anything you want to say to these amazing people before we go?
On the notes of Battle Birds podcast, guys, I am in discussions with Reese and Mike. We're all talking. Reese has been on me recently. He's Fresh wants that. He wants that battle. He wants that off-season Battle Birds podcast to start. So we're looking at it, guys. If we can get it going this Saturday, we will. Just stay looking at the feeds, because we're going to send out notifications when we get it down. But it's coming back either this weekend or next weekend, guys.
Hey, let's go.
On Philly, the podcast. Y'all see that, right? Y'all see that. And yeah, before we do go, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe. And we do have Bo Wolf coming on the show Thursday at 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. Eastern. It is kind of pending news. He kind of hinted that he might have to push it back a little bit. So maybe you guys are going to be hearing some news pretty soon. But Bo Wolf will be on here 2 o'clock Thursday. Holla at me. But other than that, y'all know what it is, man. It is Fly Eagles Fly, and we are out here. Peace.